In 325 AD, Emperor Constantine
All right, let's see it.
decided that Christianity was too unwieldy of a religion. It was too complicated, too mysterious. There were too many moving parts, and it needed to be toned down a little bit, in part to get rid of some of the contradictions. Like, for example, the Trinity. It was driving everybody nuts, right? How does this work? He's what? And so Constantine said, I want 318 of you theologians to go to Nicaea and figure out how to make Christianity into something a little bit more manageable, because if Rome was already majority Christian at that point, if the Roman Empire is going to use Christianity as the state religion to manipulate people, we as the politician class need to be able to know what Christianity is. How can we manipulate people through religion if we don't understand the religion?
So there was not a single statement made in that clip that was accurate. Literally every last thing that speaker said was false, down to the notion that Constantine requested a specific number of bishops attend the Council of Nicaea. He did not, and we actually don't know how many bishops were in attendance. The Council of Nicaea was absolutely not convened so that Rome's leadership could gain greater purchase on the mysteries or the contradictions of Christianity, or so that those contradictions and mysteries could be simplified, or so that Rome's leadership could more effectively and efficiently deploy their new state religion as a means of manipulating the masses. Christianity would not become the official state religion of Rome until around 380 CE, decades after Constantine's death, and during Constantine's reign, Rome was only about 10% Christian. The Council of Nicaea was convened because Constantine wanted greater harmony within his empire and wanted to resolve these disputes between these factions. So he didn't care how it was resolved, he just wanted the fighting to stop so there would be greater harmony in his empire, and the Council of Nicaea ultimately did not resolve the concern. There would continue to be fighting for many years to come.
So they get together at Nicaea. They come up with a solution for the Trinity. There were 30 Gospels. They threw 26 away. They ordered them destroyed.
This is not true in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. The canon of the Bible was neither established nor even addressed during the Council of Nicaea.
It didn't quite work. We have the other 26. Most of them were found in Egypt by a farmer who was in the desert digging up phosphorus.
So this is referring to the Nag Hammadi codices, which were a collection of dozens of texts, overwhelmingly Gnostic texts, some of them considered Gospels, but there were a variety of different genres that were discovered. And these texts were hidden at the end of the 4th century or the beginning of the 5th century CE, which corresponds with the escalation of attempts to suppress that literature, which follows after the beginning of a firmer assertion of a biblical canon following the canon list of Athanasius of Alexandria. So the suppression of these texts is really something that happens decades after the Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea played absolutely no role in this.
And he handed them to the priest, and the priest went, "Oh, I know what these are. These are the 26 Apocrypha." And the church then immediately declared it a miracle that somehow the 26 Apocrypha had survived. And the Coptic Church claims that all 30 Gospels are legit and rejects the rejection of the 26 Apocrypha.
This is wildly false. This speaker is confusing the Nag Hammadi library, which is overwhelmingly Gnostic literature, for the Apocrypha, which is not. The Coptic Church has always embraced a form of the Apocrypha, and none of those texts were lost. The Coptic Church has never embraced the Gnostic literature or the Nag Hammadi codices.
Apocrypha means wrong, right? So it rejects the wrong.
Apocrypha does not mean wrong. Apocrypha means hidden.
At Nicaea, the 318 also had a conversation about one other problem. And the problem was how to understand Christ's nature on earth. If he was God, then how did he manage sin, for example? Arius of Alexandria went, here's my suggestion. Jesus was God, pure God, total God. As a result, he was never tempted. Done.
So this is precisely the opposite of Arius' position. The Council of Nicaea was convened precisely because the majority of bishops rejected Arius' position that Jesus was subordinate to God and was a created being. The Nicene Creed was the first formal articulation of the notion that Jesus was consubstantial with God and also equal to God. So it was actually the rejection of Arius that led to the concerns that this creator is trying to attribute to Arius.
But the majority said, no, that's wrong. Jesus was God in a man's body. The body was tempted. Therefore, he did experience what it would be like to be tempted, but because he was God, he overcame it, and there was no sin.
So this is actually describing a debate that would arise following the Council of Chalcedon in the 5th century, and this is a debate that would be resolved in the 7th century at the Second Council of Constantinople. For some reason, this creator is confusing where these debates are coming from and is trying to squish them all together and attribute them all to the Council of Nicaea.
That became Orthodox doctrine. The other part became heresy. It's known as the Arian heresy. Arian with an I, not a Y.
That has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the Arian heresy.
So that's what's being converted. They're being taken away from the Arian heresy into what we would have considered mainstream Christianity. Of course, in the United States, the average American Christian is an Arian heretic. I can prove it to you.
All right, let's see that too.
There is a Greek guy who wrote a book called The Last Temptation of Christ. His name was Nikos Kazantzakis. The Last Temptation of Christ is Orthodox Christian belief. Christ was tempted as a man, but overcame it because he was God. Americans went nuts when Scorsese turned this into a movie. The French also went nuts. They actually set a historical movie theater on fire while people were in it, because they couldn't believe that a movie that could be this heretical could be made, when the reality was they were the heretics. That was the church's official belief.
So the book and the movie were not controversial because they presented Jesus as being subjected to temptation. They were controversial because they presented Jesus as doubting and being depressed and being filled with lust and having sexual fantasies and things like that. That is what led to the controversy. The notion that it was fundamentally about a presentation of Jesus as someone who could be subjected to temptation is pure and utter nonsense.
These are the types of contradictions I want to tackle, right? The assumptions that we go into these conversations with, like, oh, the Germanic tribesmen are pagans, and oh, right? And the reality is it's way more complicated.
The reality is this person who is, for some reason, lecturing other people needs to get far better educated about these issues.